Sometimes you see him running up and down the bleachers yelling for help. A knife is protruding from his back as he scampers about, frantic and desperate. Other times only his horrible, disembodied screams are heard. A chilling reminder of a tragedy that happened all the way back in 1942, a murder of a young boy by his best friend. To people venturing out to the football field of Del Mar High School in San Jose, California, in the wee hours of the morning, this is the terrifying sight they are greeted with. Who this boy is unknown, as are the more intricate details of the case, except that sometime back in 1942, two friends got into an argument, ending with one of them brandishing a knife and driving it into the backside of the other multiple times. Some 15 years after this tragedy, Del Mar High School would be constructed on the grounds of where this murder was said to have occurred, specifically the athletic field. It is here at 3:15 a.m., possibly the time the actual murder took place, that the apparition of the murdered boy can be seen and heard. In 2008, a San Jose-based paranormal group went to the field to investigate, bringing along recording equipment to document the trip. One investigator asked for some proof that the boy was there. "We just want to know you're here," she said. Nothing was heard at the time of the recording, but after reviewing the tape later, the investigator could hear a very soft but clear voice of a young man reply, "Okay." The investigator noted that the time of the recording was 3:05 a.m. In 2011, the CBS station 99.7 Now listed Del Mar High School as one of the 12 most haunted schools in San Jose. The sightings of the phantom boy are said to continue to this day. A woman named Nicola Kay recalls how back in 1969, when she was 6 or 7 years old, she encountered something very strange in her home in Australia. Nicola recalls that her grandmother was visiting from England at the time. Her grandmother was sleeping in the spare room, so Nicola decided to sleep in there too. Nicola slept on one side of the room while the grandmother slept on the other. In the room there was a very old, very heavy single window, which Nicola had a clear view of. At some point in the evening, she recalled how two figures appeared at the window. She watched in shock as they proceeded to open the window from the outside and creep into the bedroom. They made no sound. Nicola was terrified, and rather than scream out, she elected to remain quiet. I was terrified. I could see that these figures were not human, but resembled two very tall stick figure men. They stood there for a few seconds and seemed to be talking to each other, though they made no sound. The witness recalled trying to alert her grandmother, who was fast asleep and did not wake. The two stick men walked over to her grandmother slowly and peered over her. They continued to look at her and communicate with each other, although they made no sound, at least not that Nicola could hear. Nicola prayed that these entities would not turn their attention to her. The men proceeded to walk past Nicola over to the window. They, without making a sound, climbed out the window one after the other and closed it behind them. I would describe them as very tall, between 6 and 7 feet. They were black, blacker than the room and night, as there was no light. They both had black hats on, like a rounded shape. They had no faces. They made no noise. They moved slowly and strangely. It's interesting that Nicola claims they did not seem interested in her, only her grandmother. Even stranger was the fact that she got the sense that they were communicating with each other, even though she could see no mouth and could hear no speaking. I have only to assume she observed hand gestures indicating some type of communication, or maybe it was all in her head. This case makes me wonder if this was a type of sleep paralysis and hypnagogic hallucination, or was it something more? Possibly Nicola, who did not indicate any other such episodes. Maybe she woke up in the middle of her grandmother's hallucination and somehow observed it playing out. I'd be curious to know if Nicola ever spoke to her grandmother about what she saw, as maybe the grandmother saw it too. It would not be the first time I've heard of such a shared experience. Two people having a sleep paralysis at the same time, hallucinating the exact same entity doing essentially the same things. I might even talk about one of these cases in a later video. A group of men on a military exercise on June 13, 2006 in Baldwin City, Kansas, would experience the black triangle phenomenon up close. This case can be found in the files of the Mutual UFO Network, and while it's fairly uneventful, it does suggest yet another link between the black triangle sightings and military bases and/or operations. My platoon performed a security halt during a curfew patrol. I could not reach the IT on radio, so I asked my gunner what he saw up front. He pointed up to the sky. I got out of our Hummer and looked up. I saw what at first appeared to be 2 rows of landing lights suspended high in the air. My first nuts and bolts thought was, how did the boys in the Corps of Engineers get that up so quick? But I didn't see any guide wires or poles. Then I flipped down my PVS-14 night vision optic, and then everything got serious. I was looking at a gigantic black triangle, in excess of over a mile long. Witness claims he could see 6 or more square lights or windows along each side. It was totally silent. I could hear the traffic miles away clearly, and could hear nearby goats in the fields. It was stock still in the air, with no movement that I could detect. The men sat watching the object for about 8 minutes. After a quick gathering of the leadership, they decided not to call it in until they reached their next rally point. Once there, they combed the sky with all available devices, but could not find it. When they arrived back at headquarters, the witness asked a friend on duty if anything out of the ordinary had happened that night. All the staff on duty turned their heads in unison at the IT and I and stared directly at us. The duty officer asked, "Why?" At this point, the witness made a comment, but everyone just seemed to ignore him and went back to their business. In May 1994, a couple camping in an isolated pine forest area near Flagstaff, Arizona, would have a strange encounter. It was an uncharacteristically chilly night, and the fire they built kept going out. For some reason, the woman began to feel uneasy, and as the temperature dropped, they decided to go and sit in the car to stay warm. Shortly after getting inside the car, the woman noticed a bright star-like object above the tree line. The light moved from side to side and up and down. After about 20 minutes, they looked to the west and saw 5 more similar lights above the tree line. These ones appeared to be balls of light that danced around very quickly. Suddenly, the original light descended behind the tree line. While observing this, a multicolored craft came out of the distant northwest sky. It flew at an incredible speed and quickly out of sight. Increasingly scared, both witnesses prayed. Soon the lights from the sky were gone, but an oblong bright white light illuminated the forest floor. The couple were a little weirded out at this point, but decided it must be something explainable. They grabbed a shotgun and a pistol from their car and returned to the tent to sleep. Before long, they began hearing something moving around their tent. It sounded like people walking around. They sat and listened intensely. To them, it sounded like 6 to 10 people walking around in every direction, with an occasional tap or prod on the tent. The couple, despite being armed, were so frightened that they decided to remain quiet and allow whatever was transpiring around them just to play out. After an hour, a sound suddenly came over the tent, while simultaneously the ground under the tent floor moved like waves of energy. The woman then looked up through the screened roof and saw a bright ball of white blue light in the sky, just above the tree line. From this light came a large white-colored beam of light shining into the tent. Things would become increasingly more bizarre as the number of people outside the tent increased. Instead of 6 to 10, it now sounded more like 30 to 40 people. Occasionally they heard a sound like whipping wind, along with what sounded like a yipping, barking noise that gave them the creeps. At one point, a pulsating orange-white-blue light glowed right next to the tent on the forest floor. It grew larger in size, then just disappeared. As the sun began to rise, the couple heard no more noise, and they determined that the night visitors had left. They decided to exit the tent. A check of the campsite revealed numerous odd findings, including strange footprints in the dirt and handprints in the dust of the car. The footprints they found were toed cloven hoofs and larger three-toed feet. The four-fingered handprints had a skeletal, very thin look. Absolutely terrified, the couple quickly left the area.